I'm Veronica Dudo. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly, new nomination. President Trump names a new chair to head the Federal Reserve, what it means for the central bank. Take it or leave it, lawmakers reach a last-minute deal to avoid a partial government shutdown. What's in it and what's out of the bill? Resurfaced threat as the possible return of ISIS threatens Syria. We take a look at how Christians on the ground face an uncertain future. Plus, bittersweet Jubilee. We take you to a new exhibit in Rome spotlighting the historic Jubilee year without a pope. These stories and more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you for being with us. Our top story tonight, President Donald Trump describes his new Fed chair nominee as very smart, very good, strong, and young. The president made known his highly anticipated selection early this morning. He is nominating Kevin Warsh to be the chairman of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System. The president also made multiple news headlines when he took questions at an Oval Office event today. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports.
Veronica, President Donald Trump, in making his Fed chair announcement, said he's known Kevin Warsh for a long time and is predicting that he will go down as one of the great Fed chairmen, maybe the best, adding he will never let you down. But first, Warsh has to get the job. President Donald Trump taps former Federal Reserve Governor Kevin Warsh as the next Fed chair to replace Jerome Powell in May. The 55-year-old Warsh was a member of the Fed's board from 2006 to 2011, the youngest governor in history when he was appointed at age 35. He is currently a fellow at the Hoover Institution and once worked as an investment banker at Morgan Stanley. In the Oval Office, President Trump tells reporters,
in the whole country, I would say that this was the perfect candidate. This was not a surprise or anything. This was the man that's most qualified. Top student, best schools, everything was like perfect.
The appointment requires Senate confirmation, which could be a bumpy process. Democrats write, Donald Trump knows that Americans are souring on his economy. His solution is to grab more political power by installing a puppet, Kevin Warsh, as the head of the country's independent central bank. President Trump has been insisting interest rates be lowered, but he would not say if Warsh committed to do it.
No, but we talk about it, and I've been following them, and I don't want to ask him that question. I think it's inappropriate, probably would be allowed, but I want to keep it nice and pure. But he certainly wants to cut rates. I've been watching him for a long time.
Another topic, Iran. The president repeatedly demanded Iran negotiate a deal. Today he was asked if he's given Iran a deadline.
Only they know for sure.
Back home, Minnesota, where the Justice Department opened a federal civil rights probe into the death of Alex Preddy. As for the protesters, President Trump says there's a money trail.
We know pretty much, we're getting very close to it, but we know pretty much who's funding this stuff. These are paid insurrectionists, paid troublemakers.
On Ukraine, President Trump said that Russia's Putin and Ukraine's Zelensky hate each other, making things very difficult. But he also added a settlement may be getting very close. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
A huge chunk of the federal government is set to shut down in just hours. After midnight tonight, 6 agencies, including the Departments of Defense, State, Health and Human Services, as well as Homeland Security, will all run out of money. It's the second shutdown in 4 months, and lawmakers say this is something nobody wanted. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales has been covering this hour by hour. Eric, is this really happening again?
Yeah, Veronica, it's hard to believe. You and just about every American across the country doesn't understand why these lawmakers can't work together for the American people and come to an agreement to fund the government on time. Senate Democrats want 5 of the 6 funding bills to be passed, along with a 2-week extension for the 6th funding bill. That's for the Department of Homeland Security. This way, lawmakers can be able to make reforms to ICE. But right now, the package is still sitting on the Senate floor because members in both parties are trying to add amendments to it. They're currently voting on it right now. Lawmakers like Republican Senator Roger Marshall say it's a frustrating time.
Now it's our own party that's probably holding us up, that some members of my party want amendments and maybe some members of the Democrat Party want amendments as well. But I think the president said very clearly, we don't want to shut the government down.
Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina is one of those holding up the bill. He wants to cut federal funding to sanctuary cities.
The cancer that we're dealing with is sanctuary city policy. Do not expect me to agree to some of these demands, and the Democrats continue to insist that the root cause sanctuary city policy stay in place.
Meanwhile, Democrats say reforms to ICE must take place. Otherwise, the bill will never pass with Democrat support. Minnesota Senator Tina Smith says raids continue in Minneapolis even after the arrival of border czar Tom Homan, who was sent to the city by President Trump to help calm the situation.
I think it's important for people to understand that nothing has really changed in Minnesota over the last couple of days. Now, I heard reports that ICE agents were going to apartment buildings and pulling fire alarms so that people would run out of the buildings so that they could detain them.
Even when we pass good faith funding bills, the President of the United States is then deciding which states benefit and which states don't. That was not addressed to the point where I'm comfortable voting for any of these appropriations bills.
Those who want the bill passed as is say other agencies will suffer if lawmakers don't get this bill to the House.
It shuts down our TSA agents, the Secret Service, and it shuts down the United States Coast Guard. Now, those are, I think, pretty important positions to make sure that they're being funded, but it does nothing to prevent ICE from doing their job.
Again, lawmakers are currently voting on those amendments right now. Now, if the Senate does manage to pass this funding bill, that would then go over to the House, where several Republicans and even Democrats are already wanting to add new amendments as well. Now, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries says that Democrats will not support the bills and Republicans will have to do it on their own. But listen to this. This weekend, a special election is taking place in Texas that will cut Republicans' thin majority by just one, because a Democrat is expected to win that race. The House will return on Monday, and bottom line, a government shutdown will start tonight. For how long is anyone's guess. Veronica?
Certainly always about the numbers. And Eric, if lawmakers only pass a CR for the Department of Homeland Security, does that impact ICE funding?
You know, it really doesn't. With the continuing resolution in ICE, that will actually keep the current levels of funding, which Republicans want. ICE is actually bringing in more money than it would if the new funding bill would pass. Plus, ICE was already given about $75 billion in last year's One Big Beautiful Bill. So cutting ICE really isn't an issue right now like Democrats have been making it out to seem. It's just all political rhetoric. And Veronica, ICE has a very deep pockets right now.
Thanks, Eric. Israel says it will reopen Gaza's border crossing with Egypt in both directions over the weekend. The border has been closed for nearly 2 years. Officials say only a limited number of people will be able to pass through. The reopening of the crossing is part of President Trump's 20-point ceasefire plan. Joining us now is Aaron David Miller, Senior Fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace and a former U.S. State Department Middle East negotiator. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Now, Israel, the military there is saying that they're in charge of coordinating aid to Gaza and that on Sunday, a limited movement of people only would be allowed through the Rafah crossing, which is Gaza's main gateway to the outside world. How significant is this move?
I mean, I think it's a good confidence builder. It'll allow Gazans who have permits largely for medical conditions, cancer patients, people who need immediate treatment, probably 100, 150 a day in terms of exit permits to leave. And the Israelis will allow Gazans who have left Gaza to return through the Rafah crossing. But at this point, it's foot traffic only, or at least pedestrians only, not passage for humanitarian goods. There's a lot of work to be done in Gaza to basically answer three questions, which right now there are no answers. Number one, who or what will govern Gaza? Number two, who or what will maintain security in Gaza in all its various aspects? And number three, who or what will guarantee humanitarian assistance and ultimately reconstruction? These are very heavy lifts, and it's going to require real leadership in Israel, among Palestinians, and in Washington, and on a part of key Arab states to implement the president's 20-point plan.
Now, the border had originally been closed to stop weapons from being smuggled into Gaza. Is there still a threat that arms could be shipped into Gaza?
Yeah, and the Israelis will monitor all incoming traffic. They won't be present on site. I think it'll be done remotely. The Palestinian Authority will be actually in charge of the opening, and UBOM, or European Border Assistance Mission, that had been operating Gaza since 2007, I think will be there as well. But no, security for the Egyptians and the Israelis are a major concern.
Now, as you mentioned, there are a lot of steps moving forward to see what is going to happen in the region. But how important is this particular step moving forward for President Donald Trump's Gaza ceasefire plan?
I mean, it suggests that that phase 2 is alive. But again, opening, perhaps even on a temporary basis, depending on how this goes, a crossing point is not determinative or dispositive in terms of whether or not you're going to be able to move forward from phase 1 to phase 2. The three previous ceasefires, November 2023, January 2025, and October 20-point plan, all cratered, or at least the first two, because they could not reconcile Israel's vision of the end state with Gaza with Hamas's. And that problem, that challenge, how Hamas sees its role in Gaza and how Israel sees it, that is the fundamental challenge that needs to be overcome. And right now, there is no ready-made fix for that.
Certainly a lot of challenges. Aaron David Miller, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Up the coast from Israel in northeast Syria, Christians are once again facing uncertainty after recent clashes between Kurdish-led forces and the Syrian army. In the Al Jazeera region, home to Syria's oldest Christian communities, families are watching closely as conditions renew fears about the return of ISIS. EWTN News' Rodi Sher reports.
From Qamishli to Hasaka and the villages along the Khabur River, Christians in northeast Syria are living through another tense moment. Recent fighting between Kurdish-led forces and Syria's army has shaken the region, forcing many civilians to flee and reviving memories of years of war. For local Christians, security is deeply personal. It means being able to pray freely, keep their churches open, and raise their children without fear. Although a fragile ceasefire is now in place, uncertainty remains. International report says tens of thousands of people were displaced during the clashes, adding pressure to already struggling communities. Churches in the region are trying to support families with food, shelter, and spiritual care, while calling on all sides to protect civilians and prevent future violence. Beyond the fighting, another fear is growing: the threat of ISIS. While the group no longer controls territory, it remains active through sleeper cells, especially in the time of instability. Security experts warn that the danger does not come only from hidden cells, but also from former ISIS members who escaped detention or were released without proper rehabilitation. Many still hold extremist ideas, including women and teenagers who grew up under ISIS rule. Without real programs to address this remains a long-term security risk. At the same time, the United States and Iraq have increased efforts to transfer ISIS detainees out of northeast Syria. Thousands have been moved to Iraq for trial, while many others remain in detention centers inside Syria facilities that are especially vulnerable during periods of unrest. For Christians, these developments bring back painful memories of ISIS attacks, kidnappings, and forced displacement, especially in areas like the Khabur River villages. Community leaders also warn of a long-term threat: migration. Years of conflict have already reduced the Christian population in Syria, and continued instability may push even more families to leave. As the situation remains fragile, Christians in northeast Syria say their hope is simple: lasting peace, real security, and the chance to remain in the land of their ancestors. For EWTN News, this is Rodi Sher.
Winter is in full swing and the cold temperatures are here to stay for now. A brutal stretch of Arctic cold continues nearly a week after much of the country was hit by a major storm, and for many, it looks like more is on the way. Joining us for more is Weather Nation meteorologist Dave Holder. Thanks so much for joining us. So what's happening?
Thanks for having me.
What's happening with this upcoming storm?
Yeah, so just kind of wanted to zoom out and show you the big picture and kind of explain what the heck is going on. It's been a winter of extremes so far the last few months. If we take a look at the jet stream here, and we've been marked by just persistent upper level high pressure across the West Coast. We've been building in crazy warmth out in Western Canada, back in the areas of Alaska, not so much the interior, but what's happening is that's forcing the jet stream to go up and then crashing back down across the East Coast here. So we basically have almost a tale of two air masses where we're continuing to allow very cold air that's basically brewed fresh up in the Arctic to move on down across the East Coast, while of course we've been dealing with very warm and dry conditions out west. But the system that we're talking about now, what we're looking at is this upper level energy that's going to be making its way on in. At the same time now at the surface, an area of low pressure is deepening. You can kind of think of this as pulling the plug out of a kitchen sink filled with water. And as that happens, all the water, in this case, all the air, rushes into it. So it's really feeding off some very warm air back down towards the south. Of course, the oceans have been very warm as well. So a lot of energy available for the system. And with the cold air in place, that's a lot of moisture that's going to get squeezed out into this cold Arctic air. And so therefore, widespread winter storm warnings. And they extend all the way back into East Tennessee, much of Georgia under these winter storm warnings now as well. And you can see extending all the way up into the Delmarva Peninsula. We're looking at major impacts across a majority now of the Carolinas, potentially some extreme impacts here from the Weather Prediction Center out along the Outer Banks and the Albemarle Sound, the Pamlico Sound. These areas. Here's one of the models. This is our in-house model showing some of the heaviest snow in the eastern half of North Carolina between Raleigh and Fayetteville. And the other models, one of our other models we do tend to use, shows some of the heavier snow right along that South Carolina, North Carolina border. That would put places like Charlotte, down to Columbia, and all the way out towards the Outer Banks in snow totals that are 6+ inches. It's something that we don't normally see in this part of the country. And there you go. You can see that cold air moving on in as we get later into Saturday.
Dave Holder, thank you so much. We have a lot more still to come on EWTN News Nightly. Papal Diplomat, a look at the illustrious career of the Apostolic Nuncio to the United States. Today, Cardinal Christophe Pierre, Apostolic Nuncio to the United States, turns 80. For decades, he has served the Catholic Church, and for the past 10 years, he has been the Pope's representative in America. EWTN News' Montse Alvarado looks back on his illustrious career.
Cardinal Christophe Pierre is the Pope's personal representative to the Church and government of the United States.
I'm trying to be
a seasoned diplomat whose decade of service in Washington has shaped both the Church's engagement with public life and its pastoral response to some of the most consequential events of our time. Born in Rennes, France in 1946, Christophe Pierre entered the seminary in Rennes, was ordained a priest in 1970, and pursued advanced studies in theology and canon law in Paris and Rome, preparing for a lifetime of service in the Holy See's diplomatic corps. In 1977, Father Pierre entered the Holy See's diplomatic service. Over the next 2 decades, he served in postings spanning New Zealand and the Pacific, Africa, Latin America, and at the Permanent Observer Mission to the United Nations in Geneva. In 1995, Pope John Paul II appointed him Apostolic Nuncio. He served in Haiti, Uganda, and Mexico, working closely with local bishops and civil authorities during periods of political and social challenges. He also managed Pope Francis's historic visit to Mexico in February 2016. In April of 2016, Pope Francis appointed Archbishop Pierre Apostolic Nuncio to the United States, where he served for a decade as the Holy See's ambassador to the U.S. government and principal liaison to the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. During this period, he guided the church through the COVID-19 pandemic, supporting bishops in maintaining pastoral and sacramental care, and navigated major societal and cultural developments, including the 2016 and 2024 presidential elections and the nomination and confirmation of 2 Catholic justices, resulting in a Catholic majority on the Supreme Court and the overturning of Roe v. Wade. His tenure also coincided with significant global crises: the Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022, the 2023 Hamas attack on Israel, the collapse of law and order in Haiti, the U.S.-backed Operation Hammer against Iran in June 2025, and ongoing conflicts in Sudan, Myanmar, Syria, and Yemen. In September 2023, Pope Francis elevated him to the College of Cardinals, a distinction that allowed him to participate in the interregnum and conclave that elected Pope Leo XIV in May of 2025 after Pope Francis's passing on April 21st. Under Pope Leo XIV, Cardinal Pierre continues to represent the Holy See in the United States amid evolving global contexts, including Vatican concerns about U.S. foreign affairs in Latin America and the ongoing pastoral imperative to uphold the dignity of migrants and refugees in collaboration with the U.S. bishops. In November of 2025, he proposed and secured the first ever digital visit to the United States with 16,000 American youth and millions watching around the world in Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. Over 30 years as a bishop, over 50 years as a priest, Cardinal Pierre is pastor to priests and people, a diplomat to leaders, and embodies his episcopal motto, "If you knew the gift of God," taken from Jesus' words to the Samaritan woman in John 4:10. This motto reflects his emphasis on recognizing the gift of faith and the church as God's presence in the world.
Up next on EWTN News Nightly, Faith and History, we take you to a new exhibit in Rome that visits the historic Jubilee year without a pope. While the 2025 Jubilee has come to an end, Rome is presenting an exhibition called The Jubilee Without a Pope. It brings together faith, history, and culture through artwork, artifacts, and historical finds. As EWTN Vatican journalist Valentina Di Donato reports, some of the exhibits are being publicly displayed for the first time ever.
In the 14th century, millions died from plague during the scourge of the Black Death. It devastated Europe. But at its height, the Jubilee of 1350 was held, bringing some much-needed spiritual light to a very dark moment in history. Now a new exhibition is marking that moment in time. Entitled 1350, The Jubilee Without a Pope, it recounts the medieval pilgrimages during the year there was no pope in Rome due to the so-called Avignon papacy, a period in which the popes resided in Avignon, France.
The Museum of the Imperial Forums is located inside of Trajan's markets, which in the Middle Ages became a fortified castle in the heart of the city. Among its owners was Boniface VIII, the Pope of the first Jubilee in history in 1300. We still have the ancient residence known as the House of the Knights of Rhodes, and then the remains of the medieval Hospital of the Knights that once welcomed pilgrims. It is very likely connected to the presence of this hospital that we found 2 pilgrimages signs in the area of the Imperial Forum.
The location is no coincidence. In the Middle Ages, this area was a key reception point for pilgrims. Men and women passed through here on their way to the great basilicas of Rome, hosted by religious orders and the city's first hospitals. Here you can witness relics like the St. Michael Archangel that was in the Hospital of St. John Lateran welcoming pilgrims. Even everyday objects are on display, like the last will and testaments left by pilgrims, fearing they may not survive the long, perilous journey. Rome was one of the 3 great destinations of medieval pilgrimage, along with Santiago de Compostela in Spain and the Holy Land, a journey that many continue to make today.
appunto il luogo in cui I pellegrini.
Precisely. It was the place where pilgrims and the needy in general could find hospitality. Therefore, there were absolutely free places where one was welcomed, cared for, fed, washed, and which were almost always, at least in Rome, managed either directly by the church or by religious organizations and hospital orders.
An exhibition that shows the continued journey that people are called towards to seek, heal, and strengthen faith. In Rome, Valentina Di Donato for EWTN News Nightly.
We thank you for watching tonight. Remember, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, X, YouTube, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Veronica Dudo. Good night and God bless.